All right. Woo. Look. I got that wow. Who wants some hands up right now? We got that. Turn it up loud. I know you're wondering how. I got that wow. Here I go, coming. I can't ever stop. I'm a tour de force running. Get me to the top. I don't need a.
Well, good evening, friends.
Hello.
Good evening.
How are you guys?
It's Friday night.
It's your Friday?
It's my Friday. So,
Oh,
of course,
man.
I'm good.
Good
Yeah.
for you. Good for
And I
you.
got a deal in the works.
Oh,
Even better.
Deal happening. So, hopefully,
Yeah. Hey.
I'll hear something tonight or tomorrow morning.
Good.
Good. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Three Cocktails In. Stacy, Amy, and myself, we are back together again. I've been on vacation for the last week. This is the first time that I've talked to each of you since my little
Poolside.
boondoggle. Yes.
Yeah.
I almost said hola.
Hola.
Yes. Hola.
Hola.
Which is kind of the extent of my Spanish, but no.
Por favor. Did you throw in the please?
That word's too long. It's just easier to say please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
Did you mostly relax? Was
Yes,
it all
we did.
about relaxation?
we did. It was so relaxing. We ate way too much. We were ready to come home, and that's the sign of a good vacation when you're like, all right, that's good. We got some sleep. We got some sun. Really good food. All of those wonderful things, and ready to get back to reality. And it really helped that it was 40 degrees when we landed here, because
Yeah.
it was 7. So everybody that we met, and they'd say, where are you from? Minnesota. They're like, oh, it's cold there, right? We would say, and I had a screenshot of it, it was 17 below zero on Tuesday when we left.
Yeah.
And it was 85 when we landed in Punta Cana. So
Yeah.
it was great that it warmed up.
Yes. It was a good week to leave.
Yeah. Yes, it was. So came back totally feeling relaxed and no stress, and super excited about the conversation that we're going to have tonight. We have really enjoyed bringing guests onto the podcast. We have such an amazing group of friends, and friends who do really cool shit, right? Friends who have very cool careers, very cool areas of expertise, talents, all of those things. And we're going to dig into a topic that we have not even gone anywhere near on this podcast, right?
Yes.
So we're going to bring in our special guest. I would love to introduce my friend, Deanna Doctor. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you. Hi, ladies. Nice to be with
Hello.
you tonight.
Hello.
Very good to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So excited. Deanna, you are let me get this right. You are a certified. You're a certified therapist. Certified faith-based
Faith-based counselor. Yep.
counselor. And you work with individuals and you work with families,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I've gotten to know Deanna over the last couple of years, just through online, which is great. And I just feel like we became fast friends very, very quickly. And so it's been fun to learn about what you do professionally and how you help people. And boy, I would have to imagine that what you do is, you're probably very busy on a weekly basis, aren't you?
I
And
am
has
really
your practice has kind of just continued to grow in need. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I've been counseling for 26 years. And interestingly enough, in that time frame, have really honed in on individuals and families. But COVID changed the dynamic. I feel like COVID gets blamed for everything, but when you've done something for 26 years and then you're shut down and you're closed down, our community, our health department considers mental health a necessity. And so most of the practices in the area stayed open, as our center did. We stayed open. And we have been just inundated ever since. We
Yeah.
rarely before that had a waiting list. We now have a waiting list that runs months out. We're seeing younger and younger people. We're seeing younger and younger people who are dealing with more significant stresses and hardships. And so I am busy, but I also have job security, and that's hard to complain about.
Yeah.
People are always going to need help. People are always going to need somebody to listen to them. Life is hard if you don't have a community that listens. So I'm really thankful. I feel very blessed to do what I do and to be able to come alongside people and shoulder some of their heavy for them. Many of them don't have anybody else doing that. I feel really blessed to be able to do that.
I'm I think a lot of people are grateful that the topic of mental health is talked about now. And it's, honestly, shouldn't everyone in the world have some sort of therapy or have some sort of, counselor or session or something? I think we all probably have at different times, right?
Mhm.
Stacy and Amy?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's nice that it's more accessible.
Yeah. Just to,
Oh, for sure.
that in the past for me, it was.
Nope.
Hello.
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
We can
for
hear
me,
you.
it was great to have. Okay, well, it was great to have a neutral party, so to speak. To talk to about things. That it wasn't somebody who knew everybody in my life and didn't come in with any preconceived notions of the people in my life. And so it's that professional, I think, is huge.
Yeah, agree. So when Deanna graciously agreed to be on the podcast, we started talking about, there are obviously so many different things that we can talk about, and you counsel on many different things, but we kind of zeroed in on the topic of anger. And that's something that we really have not talked about here at all. And honestly, I don't think that I ever thought about that as a topic that is discussed with a counselor or with a therapist. But of course it is. So I'm super excited to talk about this topic. We all feel the emotion, and it can come over us at different times and in different ways. And I think we can describe the feeling of it, the temperature raising, or the heartbeat, all of these different physical reactions to anger. But what is anger exactly? Like, how would you describe that?
Is that a question for me?
Yes. Yep.
When we're meeting with clients, we describe it as a whole person reaction to a set of responses or situations that they're making a perception about. And I think we describe it that way, as a whole person reaction to their perception of a situation, because you and I could be in the same situation. We're experiencing it at the same time. Your perception could be radically different, and it doesn't evoke any anger in you. And meanwhile, I'm ready like that to fly off the handle in anger. And so we try to define it really simply as just a whole person reaction to our perception of the events or the circumstances in front of us.
So when this topic comes up for you with your clients, is it? I mean, I would assume that there may be situations where a client will come to you and they'll say, "Anger is overtaking me," and you hear people say this. I mean, I've heard the term, "Oh, that person has anger issues," and I hate that. I mean, that's kind of an unfair thing to say about someone. You don't know what's going on in their life, but how does it come up in your sessions, and what sort of approach do you take on this topic?
We certainly hear that. People come in, and lots of times they're sent to us by bosses because their
Oh,
anger has created a problem in the workplace. Maybe they've thrown something, maybe they've got a fast, sharp mouth that's being derogatory or unkind to fellow employees. Maybe they're being insubordinate on a regular basis to a boss. And so the assumption is, man, they've got an anger issue. They need help. They need to go to counseling. And so they'll come in, and on their intake paperwork, they're really honest. They'll say, I'm coming because I've been told I have an anger problem or I have an anger issue. It's pretty easy to see that even in the session. It presents fairly quickly and fairly easily when you start to ask questions and you start to poke and prod around people's lives. But the interesting thing is, I think all of us, if we're gonna go strictly by the definition I gave, we all have anger issues from time to time. There's just stuff that's always going on around us, and my perception of it is that I'm being harmed some way, and so of course I'm going to get angry. So I agree with you, Kitty. The phraseology is problematic, just from the vantage point of, oh, okay, if that's the term we're going to use, even your counselor has an anger issue. So we prefer to help people see when they get angry and why they get angry, so we can give them the tools for why and when they get angry, understanding it's not going to be a constant thing.
yeah.
I never really thought of anger as the issue. I thought of it as how being upset manifests itself. You know, that
Great distinction.
because what you just said, you know, something's bothering them and it's their response that's angry. So
Right.
to me, the anger isn't the thing. Well, I mean,
Correct.
that's what causes problems. Their response causes problems. But
Sure.
people don't just wake up angry for no
Correct.
reason. There's something
Correct.
there.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great distinction. And part of the dilemma is the only reason that it would cause a problem is because they've externally flown off the handle in some way. I'm
Right.
using that broad sweeping term. They might have just yelled, but they also might have thrown something or broken something. And typically we don't pay attention. Even in our own lives, we don't pay attention to the things that are bothering us until they evidence externally and they create an external problem. So yeah, I love the distinction that anger isn't my external response in my anger isn't actually my biggest problem. What's causing me to react that way is my biggest problem. And we delve into that in counseling. We try to help people see, listen, you're getting angry. You're thinking you're getting angry because of mistreatment in your past. You think you're getting angry because you're dealing with difficult situations right now in your present. You think you're getting angry because you have unmet desires and unmet expectations. But those are simply influencing your emotional reaction. They're not causing it. That emotional response is caused deep within all of us from the belief that I'm entitled to something, and in this moment, I'm not getting it.
And so in that way, you're likely to blame what it's this person that I'm
Yes.
interacting with right now. It's their fault.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, and don't we hear that? Shoot, maybe we've even said it ourselves. You know how I get when you. And we
Yeah.
use that phrase as justification.
Yeah.
So somebody's done something and we're like, oh my goodness, you know how I get when you say that? Well, actually, I have complete control over what I say. So if Stacy or Amy or Kitty pops off with something, I don't actually get to blame you that I opened my mouth in anger and decimated you verbally
Hmm.
just because you did X, Y, or Z. I have control over Deanna's responses. But man, anger is one of those emotions that we go from zero, calm, just super chill in life, to I can throw something in the snap of a finger. My emotion can be triggered that quickly. So I
Yeah.
think it feels for people like they're not responsible for how they navigate their anger because it's such a quick reaction from nothing's wrong to I just vented or exploded or hurt something or somebody.
Hmm.
And that makes it hard for people who really do struggle with that emotion.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah. So then
I,
what do you,
When
how do you start by, managing that anger emotion? What would be
Yeah.
your start to fixing it? You know.
Yeah. So typically, what I do is I spend time asking them for the themes, if they've noticed themes or patterns to when they do get angry. Either internally, they just feel angry, or externally, now other people can see it. I spend a couple of sessions just helping them look over the trajectory of their life and evaluate if they can see any patterns or themes. Most people can with a little bit of help and some questions directed at them. As they identify those themes, then we start to talk about, and what were you desiring around those themes? What did you actually believe that you deserved or you were entitled to? It's the flavor of entitlement that really promotes in me the reaction of anger. I actually do believe I have a right and that right is being violated. I think you're the reason it's being violated, so my anger is going to be directed at you. But after they can identify some patterns and themes, then we start to look at the desires that drove them in those patterns and themes. What did they believe they deserved?
Mhm.
And that can be, again, that can be so hard for us because it's right and appropriate for people to treat us with respect. That's appropriate. Civilizations thrive because we're mature and we're mutually respectful and we appreciate one another. So it's hard to guide somebody who's already believing those good, right things about themselves as a human that they don't actually have the power to demand a certain response from another human.
Mhm.
And that if they don't get it, it's not appropriate for them to react in anger. That can be a very hard sell because they're convinced they should be treated a certain way. But at the end of the day, I have no control over how other people are going to attempt to treat me. I only have control over how long I stay underneath the treatment. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you deserve to be treated some way and you're not being treated that way, it's
Mm-hmm.
your choice whether you stay and engage
Mm-hmm.
or whether you remove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us go right to the anger
Right.
because sometimes you're not in a position to leave. When you talk about workplace, I mean,
Correct.
sometimes, I mean, there are times in all of our lives when anger is actually, you can see it. You can see
Mm-hmm.
that you haven't made it up. You're not being ultra sensitive. Somebody is treating you poorly,
Right.
but it's still your choice on how you respond.
And very rarely do people react to anger in a calmer, helpful way.
Right.
Like anger feeds, I've noticed this in myself. Anger feeds all of the basest parts of how Deanna's ready to fight, and she's
Sure.
ready to annihilate you. I mean, that's just, that wells up in all of us. So if I can make the choice in that moment, even when I'm not being treated well, to respond out of a calmer mindset, which again, we help our clients learn how to do, there's the potential that behavior, although the behavior might not change, there's the potential that there aren't other complicating factors in play now, because I haven't fed any kind of issue myself. Of course, that sounds really great in theory.
Yeah.
Until somebody's in front of you and they're disrespecting you, or they're using their mouth to annihilate you, or they're getting physically aggressive towards you, and then it's kind of like all bets are off, and now the better person just needs to win. I mean, that's what rises in us.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not a really helpful way to solve conflict.
The fight or flight
Mhm.
comes into play there.
For sure. Yeah.
Can anger actually have? Can anger actually serve a positive purpose?
Oh, I believe so. When you look around at the injustice, when you look around at the innocence in our cultures and in other cultures being taken advantage of and hurt, when you look around at harmful or illegal activities and behaviors, anger is an energy that can literally be leveraged to fight for the cause of justice, to fight for the cause of wrongs being made right. I think there's a really beautiful place for the energy of anger to be leveraged so that people are helped, harm is stopped, injustice is corrected and righted.
Yeah.
I think we have to work at that. I think we have to practice utilizing the energy of our anger in a really positive, constructive way. But goodness, so many of the good, right things that have been done throughout history have been done because somebody was just ticked off at how wrong something was. And it created this, I can do something about this. That's a beautiful energy if we
Yeah.
Well, I
leverage it.
don't, it reminds me of the phrase well-behaved women seldom make history.
Yes.
You know, it takes that fire.
Yes.
As you've talked about it, you know, that energy of anger being fueled, and also just back to the basic idea of anger in everyday situations, to do something positive with it does require the ability to kind of step out of yourself and
Yes.
recognize what's going on and have the
Yes.
wherewithal to say, you know, I got to think this through a little bit. That
Right.
it can't just be that instant gut reaction.
Right.
And,
Well,
you know,
here's
so
the
many
interesting
times,
thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that when you think about raising kids, you know, that's what we're trying to do. Use your words. How are you feeling? All of this. Our generation, I don't think my mother ever asked me how I was feeling about something. I was told to knock it off or go to my room. You know,
Yeah.
those were my
Yeah.
alternatives. So I don't think a lot of us are of our age. I'm just going to make a sweeping generalization, as we like to do. That we didn't practice that. We didn't practice maybe I shouldn't say this.
Right.
And we're hoping that the younger generations have had a little bit more of that, but to be able to step back and realize that, you know, right idea, wrong response.
Right. And again, in all of our emotions,
Yeah.
anger has a tendency to have this negative connotation, but in all of our emotions, pausing before I react or respond would be just a good life principle.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to practice that. I have to practice
Practice.
going, whoa, Deanna, take a breath. What would be the best way to navigate this right now? Probably what you're thinking of saying wouldn't be the best initially.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think the pause is really, really, really beneficial as a tool. And we encourage people, particularly people who do struggle with moving from 0 to 60 like that in their anger. We encourage them, hey, just practice a pause in your own head, count, and take some time to just count up to 5 or 10, and then open your mouth to respond. You might still be really angry, but that initial 5 to 10 seconds of what was going to fly out of your mouth probably isn't going to, after you've slowed your roll a bit before you open your mouth. And again, I'm trying to minimize, as I help my clients, I'm trying to minimize them creating even more destruction, so to speak, in the relationships in their life because of emotion that they just didn't utilize well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it can be tremendously damaging to relationships.
Oh my goodness. The lack of trust.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first and foremost breakdown for people who are consistently, regularly angry in relationships. The other side of that relationship gets to a point where they don't trust you. You're no longer safe. There's no longer security in front of you. And so they start to pull back. They withhold information. They emotionally close down. Well, there's not going to be real intimate friendship or relationship with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge lack of respect. The number of times I've been out and about in public and I've watched somebody just pop off in their anger, my first thought going, oh, buddy, we could help you with that. Like,
Yeah.
it's really sad. Right now, you're functioning the way we do as kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kids have to learn how to regulate. They don't know how to regulate. That's part of our job as parents, is we're training them how to regulate their emotions. It always saddens me when I see somebody as a grown adult who's functioning like they're still a child in their emotional responses to life. And so I think if you're regularly interacting with somebody like that, it leads to a lack of respect for you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't actually respect that person at the same level that you would if they had control of their emotions. Plus, I think it becomes a safety issue for a lot of people. Anger is an easy emotion to abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for children in particular, if parents are regularly angry, they're regularly yelling, they're regularly yanking their kids around, now it becomes a lack of safety. There's nothing beneficial that comes from that. It really just destroys the relationships between people.
Yeah.
So it's a topic. So just like abuse, there's conversation around stopping the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Anger is a topic as well that you would seek to stop the cycle, because if you can
For sure.
help families when they're raising young kids to take that out of the family dynamic. Not that you're never going to create a situation where people aren't going to get angry about something, but it all comes down to how you deal with it, right?
Yeah, I think particularly for children, if we can remember and understand as parents that the amygdala is the part of the brain that processes all of our emotion. Well, the minute I experience emotion, my amygdala starts to just fire off adrenaline and noradrenaline. Well, if I'm a kid, I already kind of struggle with restraint, but now I've got all that adrenaline pulsing through me. I'm going to do and say all sorts of things. And so I think it's helpful for parents to realize, wait a minute, you can teach your child in those initial stages, you can teach them to pause. You can teach them to choose between option A or option B. Give them their options. show them what their options are. Here's the anger option. This is what it'll look like. Here's the restrained or calm option. Which one do you want to use? Of course, the kid's always going to want to choose the anger option because he doesn't have to work at that. That just flies out of him. But if we can teach them what comes from that, they might be more prone to early on learn more restraint in their anger. And that's a win as they age.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes discipline. So, so taking that pause, that's a really good practice, and everybody can benefit from that. And I also think too, right, as we get older, as we mature, some of that it's just a little bit easier for us to do.
For sure.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
What are some other techniques that you employ on this topic?
Well, I'm going to go back. I believe it was you, Amy, who was making the statement that, we encourage people to use their words. We encourage kids to use their words. So after we teach clients to pause, we encourage them to think through, hey, what did you believe you were entitled to? What did you feel like you deserved in that moment? Because now is your chance to calmly verbalize that. Again, I should not be demanding from you anything because I don't have that kind of control. But lots of times people want to give me what I desire in the relationship. They just need to know what it is. And so if I've paused and I've slowed my roll, so to speak, a little bit, now I can choose my words to just say, hey, Amy, in this moment, I didn't feel heard. I felt like you were just pushing aside my suggestion for the rest of the day of work. And it gives Amy an opportunity to go, oh, man, that wasn't my intention, Deanna. I thought I was listening, but okay, no, I want to do this part of what you suggested. I just don't think this part's going to work. Now, I can still be angry because I just think everybody should listen to me and my ideas are the best. But that's a completely different issue than anger. So we're only dealing with anger today.
Reality.
Yeah, that's right. So I think the first practical thing is to pause. I think the second practical thing I could do if I'm the one that's angry is use my verbiage and just communicate what I was looking for in that moment. Again, it might have been a selfish thing that I was looking for, but it's helpful for the other person that's a party to my emotional response to know what I was looking for. They might be willing to give it to me because it might not be a really horrific ask on my part, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think we do have to teach people, hey, there's a way to communicate with your words and your attitude and your tone of voice that's just completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take just a slight tangent on this. In our counseling offices, we teach our clients all the time, part of conflict resolution is learning to fight respectfully. I'm a fan of couples fighting. I'm not a fan of them tearing each other down when they do it. And so we teach them, listen, you have to use words that affirm the person. You're not allowed to use words that don't. You have to use a tone of voice that shows respect. You're not allowed to use tones of voice that don't. And so in my anger, if I'm already trying to pattern good communication, I think a third practical thing to do is for people to realize, I'm not allowed to use certain words when I'm angry. Mm-hmm. Those are just off limits. I might normally want to use them. I'm actually not allowed. It's disrespectful to Stacy or Kitty or Amy when I use those words. And so I'm not allowed to do that. It doesn't matter how angry I am. Mm-hmm. Now, again, that takes discipline. But doesn't all relationship take discipline? Aren't the best relationships in our lives the ones that we're investing time and effort into? Mm-hmm. Well, that's discipline. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's a skill worthwhile for us to learn and for us to teach other people and for us to practice so that we just become people who, even in our anger, well, at least we're still respectful and kind. We're not decimating each other.
Right.
I don't think that's too
No.
much to ask. I think we're smart
No.
enough to learn that.
We should be.
We should be.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. I work by myself, pretty much. I mean, I'm in a sales position. I'm just really curious about this idea of an employer sending an employee to counseling for anger. Okay.
Yeah.
Totally get this idea that you've got to learn how to express yourself in a non-threatening, disparaging way.
Sure.
I got to believe that there are situations where people in your office or a person that you continue to have issues with, that there's a very good chance that person is in the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you counsel people? What how do you counsel them? What are the phrases? What do you say? What is the path when the person you continue to have issues with, you're saying what you're saying, you're no longer angry, of course you're not throwing anything to them, but the other person just doesn't care, doesn't listen, continues to treat you poorly? What's your suggestion to the formerly angry reformed person who still has to deal with someone who is not playing by the same rules?
Yeah. So we've had plenty of clients like that over 26 years. They get told they're wrong. I don't have a problem telling you you're wrong. If you're sitting across in a room from me, if you're paying for my time, if you're coming because you want help, and I believe the best help you need is for you to be told that you're the one that's out of line and you need to knock it off, I'm going to tell you that.
Right. So it doesn't come from a place of anger. It's just, you're just telling it like it is, calmly saying your opinion.
And I'm trying. So I might be misunderstanding your question, Amy. And if I am, just
well, this is interesting. So keep going. I want to hear this.
So I have terminated people before because in my office I'm patterning what I'm teaching you. This is literally what I believe. I'm living this out. And so if I'm being calm, I'm being respectful, and you're just constantly barking at me, swearing at me, yelling at me, I've got a pretty long fuse as a counselor. I can handle a whole lot emotionally. But if I see that pattern through 2-3 sessions, we're done. Mm-hmm. Because if I care more about you living in healthy ways for the sake of your relationships than you do, I can't help you. Mm-hmm. So I have a really frank conversation and I just tell them, listen, everybody else actually isn't the problem. You are the problem. And you're the problem because it seems to me like you believe you're actually right and everybody else is wrong. That's arrogance and it's a lack of humility. And as long as you stay there, not only can I not help you, but you are doomed to continue to sever every relationship in your life because healthy people will not stay in relationships like that. Yeah. It's not because we believe that person is toxic. It's not because I believe that I'm not allowed to be mistreated. I understand I'm going to be mistreated. I also understand I have the freedom to go, I don't actually have to volunteer for it. Mm-hmm. That's not smart. That's not wise. And I want you to be encouraged to your absolute best potential. And I know you can be respectful. I know you can be calm. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to refuse to do that, trust me, Deanna's not the counselor for you. Mm-hmm. We're done. And I literally get up, I open my door, and I tell them when they're ready to be teachable to the multiple voices in their life, they're more than welcome to come back and see me.
Wow. Have you ever felt unsafe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I've got some really fun stories in that department. Yeah.
Fun
for sure I have.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty connected after 26 years of counseling. So I know lots of people who serve and protect.
Mhm.
I know how to dial 911. I know some other things that I'm not going to say publicly on a podcast
Mhm.
that I know how to handle myself. And so I've never, ever been pushed into a position where I have felt like, oh my goodness, I've got to have cops
Oh.
intervene. I need to
Mhm.
make an emergency phone call. But there have been several situations over the years where I'm like, wow, this person's very volatile. And when that happens, we just put out an alert to all the staff, and we make provisions for if they're ever back on the property. We preemptively strike, so to
Mhm.
speak. But those have not been nearly as frequent, even with angry people. And I think most of the time, people who are completely out of control see the damage it's creating in their lives. They might not be teachable to it, but they see the damage. And so when they're met with just this presence of, I'm not moved by that, that doesn't intimidate me, you're actually the one with the problem, they have a tendency to back down
Mhm.
and go look for somebody else to harass. Not always, but
Yeah.
often they do.
Mhm.
I think it's different, Amy, as you said, in a work environment. I think you don't have the freedom in a work environment that you might in other environments.
Yeah.
But hopefully, the leadership in a work environment would have a zero tolerance policy.
Mhm. Yeah.
That would be ideal for leaders to take seriously respectful, safe behavior in a work environment.
Mhm.
Yeah. So obviously it is, they can make the recommendation that the person seeks counseling,
Mhm.
and that doesn't break, you know, that's okay with human resources. That was the first thing that came to my mind when you said that sometimes clients are referred from an employer. I'm like,
Right.
oh,
Again, they can't be forced.
right.
But if a
Yeah.
boss is like, hey, listen, we've written you up 3 times,
Yeah.
now we're in a position where we might have to be more aggressive with you based on,
Mhm.
the operating policy in your handbook. Here's what we're recommending. We'd like to encourage you to go to counseling. Lots of times, the corporations in this area have a fund and they pay for it.
Okay.
They cover those costs. They consider them mental health costs. They consider them not workman's comp, but it comes out of a fund similar to that they
Hmm.
just have sitting there as a way of serving their employees well.
Mhm.
And again, you can't make them come, but you can strongly encourage it, particularly if this person has a pattern that they've already been written up for in their place of work. And lots of times people are more than willing to come. We like our jobs. We want our jobs. We value our jobs. And if
Mhm.
you've got a boss who cares enough about you to offer mental health care to you,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to
Yeah.
be pretty foolish to not take advantage of that.
Mhm. Right. Where, and this might be a hard question to answer, but what, how would you rank the, anger as opposed to other issues that you counsel, as far as, the bigger issues to the, I don't know how I want to say it, what do you counsel the most on, you know?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Me
what's the biggest
personally,
issue down to? Sure. Or what does
um,
everyone see the most?
I would say myself personally, there are 9 of us in the center that counsel. I would say I see a majority of adultery. So I'm going to widen that term to mean a wide range of sexual misconduct on the part of one of the spouses. I counsel a large amount of that. I counsel a large amount of depression and anxiety.
Mhm.
And I counsel a large, I don't, yeah, I'm not sure why this is happening now. Over the last 3 years, have seen a dramatic increase in the amount of parents of adult children who are coming in because their adult children are severing relationships with them for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Usually differences of opinion. You know, the mom and dad are entrenched in a view politically or morally or in their faith, and the adult child who's in their 20s, 30s, or 40s doesn't hold that view, hasn't held that view, and it just creates so much conflict that the adult child's like, listen, I'm done. I'm not having a relationship with you. And that's really devastating to the parents. So
Does that I'm sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Is the root of that a lack of respect for the other person's opinion?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And do we live in America right now? Do we see that anywhere else? Is that trending anywhere else? Goodness, as a culture, we just don't respect other people's different viewpoints. And I'm not talking about agreement. I understand that between the four of us, we're going to have a wide range of different viewpoints. And I'm not expecting the three of you to agree with me on hardly any of them. Like, we're adults. We're not going to agree.
Right.
I'm not talking about agreement. I just mean the bare minimum human respect. Yeah, I totally agree with that, Amy. We've lost the mature, kind, respectful ability to disagree with somebody and still value them. And that is a respect issue. Now, I think it's possible it works both ways in those family dynamics. Like, I'm not blaming only the adult kids and I'm not blaming only the parents. I think it's shared. But yeah, for sure, I think there's a lack of respecting that you have a different viewpoint, but goodness, I still just adore you. I think you're wonderful and I want you in my circle.
Yeah.
But we've lost that, or we're losing it. Maybe I should say that. Yeah. And that concerns me for families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you not totally stress over, you know, the people you're counseling, you know, hoping that they, you know, can improve whatever they're trying to do? How do you personally, you know, try to, I don't know if you distance yourself from it or you just know that that's your job is, you know, not to worry about all of your, you know, all the people you're counseling, or you know, how do you deal with it?
How do you not take it on?
Yeah.
How do you leave
that's
work
such
at
a
work?
great question. It's such a great question. I have definitely grown in that. To answer that question, Stacy, I would say the first several years of counseling were definitely rough. And my husband can attest to that. We've been married for 31 years. And so he has seen me at the very beginning of my career and now kind of seasoned in my career. And he has said there's been a dramatic shift in how I navigate what I do for a living. I think part of it is my build. I think I've been built to handle hard and to handle a lot of hard well. I'm not saying that at all with arrogance. We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and I have plenty of weaknesses. This podcast does not want to go that long to discuss those. But one of my strengths is that I really do handle a lot of hard and heavy emotionally very well. I don't experience anxiety or worry for my clients. I don't panic when I get emergency phone calls because of suicide attempts or domestic violence. I have a tendency to be really cool and calm, and that has served me well over 26 years. But I think the other thing that serves me well is I'm really intentional about my own personal mental and emotional well-being. I live very intentionally during the week in how I build relationship with people. Steve and I have a very strong marriage that we work really hard to maintain its strength, because that helps me then all week long as I carry other people's heavy and hard. I've got a good group of friends who are just, they're life-giving, and we do these types of things together. No, not podcasts, but we're doing life together, and we're supporting one another, and we're caring for one another. I do a lot of reading and a lot of outdoor activity. And so, yeah, I think I'm probably pretty intentional about my own emotional well-being and mental health. And I think part of the reason I am is because I regularly struggle and wrestle with depression myself. I have a tendency to roll pretty low emotionally. And so in order to maintain a really good, healthy view of life and movement through life, even in my seasons of depression, that ongoing intentionality every week has helped tremendously. So yeah, I think most of it's just the build. I can handle a lot of hard and ugly.
Wow. Well, Deanna, I just am so impressed by you. You are just so professional, and this conversation, your clients are lucky to have you.
Thank you. That's really kind of you to say. Thank
The
you.
work that you do, it's so needed, and yeah, I love that we can talk about mental health and our own. I mean, I've been on an antidepressant for I don't know how many years, many. And people can say that, and it's not
Yeah.
like, what? Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's a real gift, the
It must be.
openness that we have today to
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like we could talk. We could talk forever.
I
on
know,
this topic.
right?
And
Have me over. Let's do coffee. Just have me over, ladies.
Hey,
I'd
we
like to
will.
hear all your stories. I love to listen. It'd be great.
And there are always questions that I'm like, okay, tell me a little bit about, right? We want the juicy stuff too.
Yeah, I love it when people say I don't like to participate in drama, but I don't mind hearing about it.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, counselors know lots of drama.
I bet.
Lots of drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. And you know what, we should probably dig into some of these other topics as well. So if you're open to it, we'd love to have you back another time.
Oh, I would love that. I'd be honored.
Oh,
I
great.
really appreciate the ask. Thank you so much for
Yes.
having me.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other parting thoughts, Stacy or Amy? Does anybody have a shot? So Deanna, one of the things that we do sometimes at the end of a show, we have a shot, which is maybe a suggestion for people, something that we might have come upon earlier in the week that we want to share. Sometimes we have them, and sometimes we don't.
Yeah. I've got nothing.
Well, let me tell you what I was just Google searching before we jumped on here today. So, because this is also a pretty regular topic. What's in your Google search?
That episode was great, by the way. I loved that episode. I was all over that episode.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what's in mine? And this just popped up on my socials. So somebody that I follow, she was showing how she has basically created a salad bar in her refrigerator crisper drawer.
I saw that. Reel a while back.
I did too.
Brilliant.
This is brilliant. I know. And so I'm like looking at all of these little compartments, and she's got, all the veggies prepped and the lettuces washed and spun. And so you can literally pull that drawer out and you can, make yourself a salad bar.
That's a great idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was looking on Amazon to find all of those little,
Containers.
those little, BPA container things that I can fit in, because we have a fairly new refrigerator. It's got the French doors that open, and then you've got the big drawer that pulls out. And I'm like, I could organize that better.
Yes.
Yes. We so want to eat better, we want to do meal prepping and all of that kind of stuff, and we talk about it forever, and I don't get it done.
Mm-hmm.
I think of all the things that you can meal prep, the hardest to make it good is a salad.
It's a salad.
A salad out is 100% better than
Yeah.
a salad made at home.
Why that is, but that's true.
I don't know if it's the chilled plates. I don't know.
Yes.
You know, but dang,
I know.
making a salad at home is always like okay, fine.
Yeah.
I
Work
have
on
to
that,
eat
kitty.
good food.
Yeah. Work on that, kitty, and report
Okay.
back how that
All
goes.
right, I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to work on it because poor Bill. Every day, so he comes home for lunch every day, and he's eaten the same thing for years: lunch meat, and cheese for years. Like, we can do better.
Yeah.
So we need suggestions. So for our listeners and viewers, we're putting lots of posts out over on Facebook. Maybe this would be a good question over the next week.
Yeah.
What do you guys eat? What do you eat? Because there are a lot of people who are very disciplined about their menu that they have lined up for the week. They rotate things in and out. Some people are really, really good at that. So I would love for somebody to share that with us if that is their strong suit.
Yep.
So there we go.
That would be good.
Please help us out. Deanna, stay with us when we roll the music here. Just stay with us, and we'll all come together backstage. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. Good to have a conversation again. We'll see you all next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Woo. Look, I got that wow. Who wants some hands up right now? We got that. Turn it up loud. I know you're wondering how. I got that wow. Here I go, coming. I can't ever stop. I'm a tour de force running. Get me to the top. I don't need an invitation. I'm about to start a celebration. Let me in. Brought a good time plus some friends. Turn it up loud, pass